Welcome back, Warchanters, to another session of War Chat, talking about some of the greatest games in FSU history with our good friend and historian, Corey S. Clark, joining us from the sprawling metropolis of Buford, Georgia. And we got a good one today, Corey.
We do.
Can never get too many beating the Gators. You know, we've done a lot of them, but why not? Let's do another for the heck of it.
Yeah, and I like that it's a little recent. It's in the past 10 years, so I think everybody that's watching this or is a member of the site or just a Florida State fan will remember this game. So that's pretty cool to know. And it's kind of cool that we're just running the spectrum, man. We've done one from 1980, and we've done one to 2012. Well, I'm sure we'll do one even more recent than that here soon. So, it's another good one.
Yeah. Shout out to Jameis if you're watching, Jameis, man. We're waiting for your call, man. We want to get you on one of these war chats. So
absolutely.
We'll keep doing that. We got some good games to talk to you about. I think if we get him, we want to do the 2013 pit, right?
I think so. I think that would be the one that I feel like the Auburn game has been talked about enough. Maybe the Notre Dame game the next year, but I think if we got Jameis, I think 2013 pit would be the one I'd want to do. That started a whole new era.
Yeah, speaking of this season started a whole new era for Florida State, and that's where we're hitting 2010 season, Jimbo Fisher's inaugural season as head football coach at Florida State. And the game that I think really kind of the narrative started to change, the momentum was swinging with a good recruiting class and everything for Jimbo Fisher. You beat Miami earlier in the year. You were doing a lot better than you were before, but really had to get over that hump against the Florida Gators. So that's the season finale. That was your nemesis. They'd beaten you 6 in a row. And so this was a huge game, I think, for Florida State and for Jimbo Fisher to get off to the right start and keep building on that momentum, which obviously we saw snowballed a couple of years later with a national championship.
It was a huge, huge game. You could argue maybe one of the 5 most important games of Jimbo's tenure at Florida State because Florida was still king. I know they didn't have a great year in 2010. I assume they started that season ranked in the top 3 or 5, even though they lost Tebow. But when you're recruiting against Urban Meyer, who just the year before had quit and then come back that December, and you lost to Matt Elam, like you lost Matt Elam because of that. But if you can beat him like you beat him, it's like it was just such a seismic shift. You probably have the great recruiting class anyway. He was putting a lot of groceries in the cart even before that Florida game, but if there was any hesitancy at all from a great player in the state of Florida, like, okay, is Florida State are they really coming up and being a good program again? Florida's been the best program in the state now for 5 or 6 years. Urban's won 2 national titles. That's the place I want to go until I see something different. Well, you saw something different that afternoon. I mean, that game was not competitive.
No.
And it was, to me, it seemed like a changing of the guard. Like you said, you lost 6 in a row. And not only had you lost 6 in a row, the last 3 had been embarrassments. I mean, they had just annihilated you. The year before, Gary Danielson called it was like the varsity play in the JV. So you go from that, the varsity play in the JV, to the very next year, you're beating them by 24 points in your own building with a first-year head coach against your national championship head coach. Man, that shifted everything.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, you have to wonder what happens if Florida somehow wins that game. It seemed like Urban Meyer had checked out. Who knows? Maybe he gets the win. Maybe he gets some win. He comes back. Who knows how things could have played out? And it really built on that. He got those couple big recruits, the Jeff Luck, LaMarcus Joyner going into that year, and then he got legitimized. We're talking about right now with Mike Norvell. Will he be able to legitimize things? I mean, there's some momentum. The guys see him. It seems like he's got all the right things going, but can he prove something on the field? Willie Taggart had some momentum when he first got here, but then it didn't show out on the field. He lost that legitimacy. So Jimbo got that legitimacy by beating Miami, by beating Florida, and then Corey getting the first 10-win season for Florida State since 2003. I mean, it had been that long since they had a 10-win season.
Yeah, and not only that, it didn't end up turning out great, but they clinched because I think NC State lost. I don't remember exactly.
Maryland beat NC State that night because they put that on the big screen, I think, at the end of the game, right? And then, they officially clinched the Atlantic and were playing for the ACC.
It was just a fan base that was so starved for something to be excited about again. The end of the Bowden era was just ugly. There wasn't a lot of it. Not only was there not a lot of hope on the field, but then your rivals 2 hours to the east were the king of college football. They had all these great players. They were always playing for national championships. They were always number 1 in the country. They had everybody wrote or talked about for 4 straight years. So you'd been inundated with that forever. And then that guy leaves, Urban leaves and then comes back. And then I just think that game, I think initially, and I can't wait to ask Christian about this. About Christian Ponder, by the way, is the guest. Yeah. Everyone, you know that it's on the title, but still, what the feeling that game, because none of those guys had any success against that team.
Yeah.
And frankly, that football team, they had a lot of nice wins that season, but no huge wins. That was their biggest game of the season. And what the feeling was like, what the mood was like in the locker room, what the mood was like before the game, and how Jimbo approached it. Because I think Jimbo understood just how important that game was. Yeah. And they ended up winning. What they ended up winning, Gene? 6 of the next 7 after that. They lost the 12 game and then won all the rest until 18.
So I'm confused. What are you talking about now? For what? For when?
Florida State against Florida.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. They went on that 2012 EJ. Yeah, they went on quite the run against Florida from this point on. I would say that, they did have the big win over Miami. Was, how Miami gets a lot of times. Right. They were technically ranked. You know how Miami does. They play a weak schedule. They win a bunch of games. They get artificially inflated in the polls, and Florida State went down there and beat the bejesus out of Miami Coral Gables. Was that the year with the Chris Thompson runs? Was it 2010?
Yeah, he had two straight like 80-yard runs on back-to-back plays. And at the time, Miami was 13th in the country. Now they ended up not being ranked. So by that time in late November, we knew that Miami wasn't as good as they were purported to be in October. But this Florida team was still, they were still 8-3, 7-4, somewhere around there. Definitely a disappointing year. Their quarterbacks were not good, but they still had a lot of talent. And as Eddie Gran said to Jimbo late in that game, hey, man, you made him quit. Like Urban just punted the game away, knowing that the game was over. And it can't be stressed enough how that just pivoted the whole series. And I remember, and I've said this before on multiple different platforms, but I remember specifically talking to Jimbo after the 2009 Florida game and being asked, because remember that was when Tebow called his own jump pass. It was his senior day. They kneeled on the ball late in the first half when they could have gone and scored again. Just took pity on Florida State. And could have won 70-0. Aaron Hernandez is throwing the ball into the stands. So I asked Jimbo, or somebody asked Jimbo after the game, about how do you catch up to Florida? How do you close this gap? And he said, look, it's the state of Florida, man. With the recruits that are in this state, it doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. Mm-hmm. Now, 3 days later, Bowden was out, and Jimbo was the head coach. And then 365 days later, he was beating that same team that took pity on them by 24 points and completely flipped the rivalry.
Yeah.
So the class of the Christian Ponders, the Rodney Hudsons, the Rodney Smiths, the Willie Halsteads, even those guys, man, they should really take pride in what their program became over the next half decade, because I really think that season started it. But I think that game was the one that made the fans believe. It was the first day when you remember about beating Florida finally for the first time since Ricks was a junior. PK Sam was there. Like you'd gone that long without beating your rival. But then you also advanced the ACC championship game for the first time in 5 years. I know you lost that game, but for 5, it had just been such a bad half decade for Florida State fans to feel good about themselves. And then the recruiting class they were getting. I know 11 didn't turn out the way people wanted it to, but that I think was the foundation that set them on their way for 2012 and 2013, because that class they got that year, they saw, like we talk about with Norvell and what Willie needed to happen. The recruits that were believing Jimbo's words, he was selling it. They also saw the proof on the field. Like, the school that's been dominating this state for the last half decade, we just beat them by 24 points. We're on the up. They're on the decline. Come here. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah, and it took Florida how long to even recover from that? I mean, it took them to the last year or two until they got back up to a relevant level. Since that game. It was a weird season for Florida State, too. I mean, they went into that game with 3 losses. And we all remember the second game of the season. They weren't ready for prime time, went up to Oklahoma and just got blitzkrieged. But, interesting, that season they had that, what we talked about before on the most gut-wrenching losses, Corey, that NC State game, the Ty Jones forced fumble on Ponder. Right? We won't bring that up to Christian. Ty Jones had a great hit on the play, knocking the ball loose. So they lost that game they absolutely should have won. They had won. And then you miss a field goal that's made more often than not against North Carolina. You could have easily been 10-1 going into this game. I mean, it was a pretty good team. They just couldn't get over the hump in those couple really close games, probably because they were new and just didn't quite know how to win. But I mean, man, they were right on the fringe of being a top 5 type team that year.
Yeah, I feel they finished 10-4, and really you'd say only 2 of those losses. The Virginia Tech loss, I thought there was nothing fluky about that. And then obviously the Oklahoma game, they just weren't on the field with that team. But otherwise, they were really close to winning 11 or 12 games. And again, that just gave you hope. And to go and dominate your 2 rivals, not just beat them, but dominate them, really set the stage for the rest of the recruits in the state to be like, yep, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. I think I don't know what happens with Jernigan if Urban stays. Maybe he still goes to Florida. But you best believe that game opened his eyes a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, but until then, it's just all talk. Like, yeah, we've caught up with Florida. We're going to be better than Florida. But until you see that game, the Jernigans of the world and people like that, you're like, that's when you realize, okay, yeah, Jimbo knows what he's talking about, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you have a new coach, there's always going to be excitement, but you have to back it up with something. And, and I think the combination of having the new coach who had been around the program and then hiring a good staff. I mean, that's first staff was really good, especially when it came to recruiting. I mean, the Eddie Grahams, the Coleys, those guys, man, they could recruit their butts off. And then you throw it in, you back it up by legitimizing it on the field. And then your 2 biggest recruiting rivals, Miami and Florida, you take them to school on the field. So it all built up to a perfect storm. In the next couple of years, they just absolutely own recruiting in the state of Florida. And then you get the Timmy Jernigans and all these other the Rashads and everybody else that helped you, Kelvin Benjamins, those kind of guys that helped you go on and win 29 straight games and win a national championship. So, yeah, it really set the stage. So we're going to get a little bit more into this game. We're going to be joined by one of the stars of the game through 3 touchdown passes, and that is, of course, Florida State great Christian Ponder. All right, welcome back to, we're calling this War Chat on warchant.com, talking with Florida State great Christian Ponder. Join us from the Arizona, where hopefully Corey's having some internet issues, so hopefully Corey will be able to join in here at some point. And Christian, first of all, thanks for joining us. I appreciate your time. I know you got busy. You got 3 kids. You're chasing around the house, so great to have you on board. And it's funny, our website the other day, someone started a thread going, "What's going on with Christian Ponder?" And they wanted, I mean, maybe I know we talk a little off air, so to speak, but maybe just kind of bring people up to date. I know you're kind of between a couple different locations, but what you and your family are up to these days?
Yeah, well, thanks, Gene. We're splitting time between Phoenix and New York City. Obviously, my wife is with ESPN, so that's why we spend the fall up in New York. It's easier for her to get up to Bristol, Connecticut, and do her show. And I started, my last year was 2016 with the Niners, and went through this transitionary period of, what the heck do I do with my life? And started down the path of wealth management, started down the path of almost Georgia hedge fund. And then kind of got to the entrepreneurial world and have started a sports tech company focusing on providing software solutions to coaches, mainly in football. And then we'll get past that. But, really want to help create solutions that make that world easier, make players, give them a more efficient, effective way to prepare mentally for football games, and provide that as a surface level solution, but then really focus on some things we can do beyond that once we get our foot in the door and get engagement, but really doing some character development, some identity development to make life after the game a little bit easier for those guys and make help guys kind of find the healthiest version of themselves. And so we're in the building process right now. Hopefully we'll have something done in the next 6 to 9 months and start getting out there.
Well, that's great, awesome. Christian. Thanks for your time.
Really appreciate it. Corey, we just started, so we haven't even talked about the game yet.
Oh, man, that was ridiculous. I'm sorry, man.
Buford, Georgia's still trying to work out the whole internet puzzle.
That's ridiculous. My power just went out in the middle of the afternoon.
Technology never works when you need it to work.
Exactly.
It's a rarity. Yeah.
So today we're all brought together to talk. Christian, I don't know if you're aware, but we've been going the last several weeks. We've been talking about some of the great games in Florida State history. We've had Mark Richt on. EJ Manuel's come on. We've gone back and Bobby Butler, some of the all-time greats, to come on and talk about some of the great games. And we want to get something a little bit more recent. We thought about that 2010 game against Florida. It was your final regular season final home game. Yeah. And, you'd witnessed so many times, 4 times in a row, Florida State losing to Florida and not even close generally. And so just going into this game, how big of this game? Because you guys were finally getting some momentum this season. You definitely upped your game. The talent base was increasing. There was momentum. But how big was this game to kind of, you think, turning the tide for Florida State?
Yeah, it was huge. Yeah, we were, it was a losing streak against Florida. And, for me personally and for the seniors, it was emotional because it was our last game in Doak Campbell, our last game to have the chance to beat Florida. And, and my two previous games against Florida, I was hurt the year before and missed that whole game. And then the year before that, my first year starting, I had a back injury from the week before playing Maryland and didn't practice all week. And then had a horrible first half and they pulled me and put Drew Weatherford back in the game. And so this was kind of like my redemptive game to go out and finally to beat Florida. And, it happened on senior night. It was definitely an emotional time. And then to throw in the fact that, that game was going on between, who was it? Was it Maryland and NC State? To get into the ACC championship game. And we end up, that happening. So it was, to us, it was an emotional and very important game for us to come out and win.
Were you nervous going into it?
I was. I think that whole year, first of all, for me, I think coming off my junior year, I dealt with a lot of nerves that year. After the shoulder injury, I just never felt as confident throwing the football. I never really felt like I threw the football the same. And then throw in all these expectations on, what was it like? I think it was the preseason ACC Player of the Year. I was picked for that. So and then the Heisman campaign. So I had all this pressure on me. And man, I didn't play well all year, to be honest with you. And fortunately, we had our defense was playing well. Had a lot of good talent, good leadership on the offensive line, and running game was strong. Had some good talent on the wide receiver position that really kind of helped us get through my inadequacies. But yeah, especially for that game, I was definitely nervous. And I think it's one of those things, you have the nerves and then you finally get in, you get through that first series and you get over with it. I think it probably lasted a little bit longer in that game because those feelings of it's my last game in Doak. We haven't beat Florida and, we didn't play that well in the first half and it was a close game and just getting that monkey off your back. It was definitely in the back of your mind until we had 2 touchdowns back to back with, they had 2 turnovers, right? They fumbled, and then we had the fake punt that we stopped, and then we went back-to-back touchdowns, and it was kind of like, okay, a deep breath in and kind of relax and play.
I know it's been 10 years now, Christian, since you played that game, but do you remember like a specific, what the game plan even was? Because they wasn't the Florida team of maybe the 2 years before, record-wise. And obviously they didn't have, Tim Tebow. I don't know if you remember him. He played in the state around the same time you did.
Yeah.
But they still had really, really talented defensive players. So what was the game? Do you remember at all what the game plan might have been going into that game?
Yeah, I remember we wanted to run the football, which we did. We wanted to take advantage of some opportunities on the outside. I think we had a few go balls we threw to Rodney Smith and had some, the play that we threw the touchdown to Willie Halstead was one of those plays where it's like we saw something on film on their defense where if we go into this formation, we motioned out the tailback and we're like, if we get this look, we're going to throw this route to Willie. And so we called in the huddle and, the chances are, who knows if we're actually going to get that look. And we got it where the safety, it would end up being like a cover 4 invert where the backside safety ran over to the field and there was no one in the middle of the field. And so it was one of those things where it's like the picture perfect look. And that was part of the game plan. And some things we saw in the red zone, they had a cover 4 look that we just, they weren't playing as well, but they were still talented. But we had the talent too to beat up on some certain matchups that we had, and obviously it played out well, and our defense played really well. Had some turnovers, and fortunately we won it.
Christian, we were there covering Jimbo that first year when he was head coach, but we could see just how intense he was, how passionate, everything he did. Was he any different? He always was like every game the same, all the coaches' cliches, but being that Florida game, we all know how big that was. You'd beat Miami pretty convincingly early in the year. But, man, that Florida monkey was on Florida State's back. He knew it. Everybody knew it. Was he a little bit more intense even for Jimbo going into that game? What was at stake?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay.
I do remember, for him, there was kind of this transition of going from just an offensive coordinator to a head coach and trying to figure out, hey, how do I delegate power? How do I delegate coaching? And especially on the offensive side of the ball, right? He was, I mean, he still called plays, but he really wanted his hand on kind of everything in the offense. But how do I balance that with staying involved in the defense? And so there were some dynamics he was still trying to figure out. But I don't remember him being, especially going into that week, more intense. Especially when it's Florida State, Florida, or Florida State, Miami. It's already so intense. I don't think it's almost like the coach has to like cool you off a little bit. Because there already is so much energy and pressure to go out and play well. We already knew it was an important game.
So going into the game itself, you guys, I think you took the initial kick and went right down the field, had to settle for a field goal, but you get up 3-0.
Yeah.
And then Florida, which didn't score a lot of points that entire season. No disrespect to their quarterbacks, but they didn't have very good quarterbacks then. But they go right back down the field and score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Do you remember the sideline? Were you so involved in the game at that point that you're like, okay, we're fine? Is there any doubt that can creep in? Like, wait, our defense just gave up a touchdown. Tim Tebow's not on that field. Percy Harvin's not on that field. How did that just happen? Are we gonna shrink in the moment? Is there any of that doubt that comes in that early in a game, early in the first quarter?
Yeah, a little bit. So I think especially the doubt comes in when you're on the sideline and you're not kind of participating and control the game, and you kind of see, wow, they just on their first drive just marched right down and scored a touchdown, and especially in a rivalry game where things can either get out of hand really quickly or things can stay close for a while, and we weren't playing well that first half. Some of the things that stick in my mind are the plays that I didn't make. And on that first drive, missing Bo Relaford on that throw that we end up having to kick the field goal right after, if I bring it down a couple feet, it's a touchdown. And so those are always the things that are ingrained in my mind. And then, leave like a go route inside to Rodney Smith that could have easily been picked off. And so we weren't playing well. There was already pressure. And then fortunately, the tide flipped for the defense. We got a couple turnovers and they got that monkey off our back and we could relax and play. Fortunately, it didn't snowball because especially in rivalry games, I feel like things can get out of hand pretty. And they had before against, the 2 previous years that I was a part of with Florida, like things can get out of hand pretty quickly against a talented team like that.
So, Christian, I think we're talking about this point in the first half. You got to bring up the special teams because Sean Powell, your teammate, had a couple in that first when you guys were kind of trying to get your rhythm on offense. He had 2 punts that got him inside the 10-yard line. So you guys were – I know Jimbo's big on the field position game. You had that. Yeah. And then what you brought up, and you guys were to go on after that, get a touchdown. So it's 10-7. It's close. And you mentioned that fake punt, again, special teams, that you stopped. Urban Meyer to that point, every fake he'd ever done had worked. That was the first time he'd ever been stopped on a fake play. And I think it was a Chuko Genije made the stop. He stayed at home and got that.
Justin Bright. I think Justin Bright
was Justin Bright, the other one in on that play too.
Yeah.
And I think it was the very next play is when you hit Rodney. But I mean, is that one of those moments in a game where it clicks and you can feel it's turning at that point?
Yes, for sure. For us, back-to-back touchdowns and turnovers for us, right? Like I think every offensive coach preaches, hey, we get a turnover, we got to capitalize. And especially as you get in the NFL and things you become more studious of the game. Defenses know, hey, you should expect a shot play here. And that's why it was surprising, right? We go and we immediately double move and we took advantage of Florida's aggressiveness in the defensive backs and double move. And Rodney he's wide open. It was one of the easiest throws I ever made in college. And, but yeah, I mean, special teams were so huge. And that's always that chess battle that not a lot of people talk about in the field position battle. And Sean Powell, who's my roommate for 2 years, he had a big leg and performed well in that game. And the stopped fake punt was so huge. And we knew they were so well coached on special teams, our Florida State special teams. And we knew, right, Urban was kind of a gambler. So there was an expectation at some point that it was going to happen. So they were queued up and made a huge stop. And for us to go back-to-back scores and get up was a big deal.
So I don't know if you'd remember it. Again, I know it's 10 years ago. So after you get the stop on the fake punt, you have the ball at their 39-yard line. Yeah. Does Jimbo say, hey, we're taking a shot right here? Does he just give you the play call? Do y'all have a little conversation about if it's there, make the throw? Like, what's the interaction with Jimbo right before you go onto the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think, going back to that game plan conversation, we wanted to do some double moves, and we had a few double move calls, like the throw to Willie Halstead for the touchdown, and then the one for Rodney Smith, and there were a few others that we wanted to take advantage of their aggressiveness. And so, with that understanding of, hey, it's a turnover, we're on their side of the 50, let's try to take a shot. And it was immediate. And I think we were all confident, like, yeah, this is going to work. And we got the perfect look. And again, he was so wide open. It was such an easy throw.
Was he open when you threw it? Like, was he that open when you threw it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in the TV, I went back and watched the TV replay, and it's like there's barely anybody in the picture with him. But I didn't know if you threw it, but while he was making his double move,
I'm pretty sure. I want to say the cornerback fell down. He bit so hard on the stop and go that it was. Yeah, I just had to complete the football to get a touchdown.
No, I think it might have been Florida's next series. Now they had Jeff Demps, the speedster, and he makes a little run across the middle, and Nick Moody just absolutely lights him up. And if you go back and look at the replay, and there's some photo still shots, you can see paint coming off Moody's helmet or Demps' helmet. The hit was so hard.
I think his mouthpiece.
I don't know if it would have been. I don't know if that pit would be legal today, but anyway, he destroyed him on the play. What is that like for you guys when you're sitting there, you got momentum building, and then a defense makes a hit like that?
It's huge. It's you're always feeding off of adrenaline and momentum and energy, and it's one of those things. Yeah, you see that, you hear that, and especially in a game like this, it definitely gets you excited. It's one of those things. Okay, like let's go get back on the field, like offense, like let's go right now, and then you kind of settle yourself down because you never want to. When you get high and low in a game, energy wise, it can make things more difficult, and especially in a game like that where things are already so high. But yeah, like. When you see a hit like that, you're like, all right, and especially after those plays, you're like, all right, we're good. We're in a good situation right now.
And then later in the quarter, you guys have a pretty long sustained drive where for the game, you guys were 8 of 15 on third downs, which is, you're going to win a lot of games when you do that. And you end up, it culminates with a 15-yard, like little slant to Taiwan Easterling. It was kind of like, it seems like it was almost like a delay route. Like things cleared out and then he came across the middle. Number one, do you remember that play? I know it's not as memorable as Rodney Smith streaking down the sideline. That's my first question. My second question is, did you ever see Taiwan Easterling throw a football?
I did. He threw first. He did, and he threw the ball. He threw a spiral. Like he was, that thing was spinning.
But he threw it. I saw him throwing with Burt Reed one day after practice, and I swear he was throwing it 80 yards in the air.
Yeah, he could throw the ball. But he had that baseball background.
Yeah, no, he did. That's right.
But that play, I remember that play. It was, they played that red 4, and it was, Taiwan was my number 2 on the play. We were trying to get, I think it was Bo Relaford, whoever the number 3 receiver was, down the middle. And what happened was Taiwan ran a little 5-yard, he kind of run up 5 yards, went out, and the safety saw him run a shorter route. So then he goes and doubles Bo. As Bo clears out, running toward the back of the end zone. And then it was just one-on-one with the linebacker, which Taiwan had leverage on. So I just came down him, dumped it off. I think it was a 5-yard throw, and he walks it in for a 15-yard touchdown. So that was one of the easier plays. Two very easy touchdowns for me. So it's always nice when they draw it up that way. And that's a testament to Jimbo's coaching and his offensive play design, that he recognized this and always had really good game plans for us to create matchups to capitalize on. Because football is a simple game. It's all trying, especially when a defense is playing zone, right? You're just trying to create 2-on-1 matchups wherever you can. And it's my job as the quarterback to just find the open guy and make an accurate throw.
Well, and one of the keys, though, right, is you had the time to do it. Like, your first option maybe wasn't open. That was it. It's not a real fast developing play.
No.
So I wanted to give you this opportunity to talk about the offensive line in general if you want. But my man Rodney Hudson is one of literally the best players that's ever come through Florida State. Yeah. What was he like as a teammate? Did you guys appreciate him in the moment, especially now that he's like a perennial All-Pro? But did you guys appreciate how good he was even back then?
Yeah, I don't think I fully appreciated it until my senior year. He came in. I remember over the summer when he came in as a true freshman, and he was just very quiet, very unassuming, just like, hey, another guy. You get a lot of guys that come in and don't really do anything and don't talk much. And so, I never pictured in my mind that he's going to be this, all-pro player who's still playing in the league. But I ended up obviously becoming an incredible player, and having him as the anchor on that line at left guard, and then throwing in Ryan McMahon as center, who was a really smart player and just incredibly hard worker. And man, Andrew Dacko is one of the toughest players to ever play the game. I mean, some of the injuries and the back stuff and shoulder stuff that he had and kept playing, and Zebri Sanders, who was extremely talented. And I think, Spurlock and Storr, I think Spurlock got hurt. Yeah. And then it was Stork stepped in, and obviously Brian Stork ended up going play in the league and won a Super Bowl with the Patriots as their center. And so they were so good. And they were, I think finally they were getting appreciated, especially my senior year. I mean, I think they were definitely the strength of our team and our ability to run the ball. And just like you said, give me that time on a play that we're looking downfield, and then we're coming back on a double move that's short and giving me the time to do that. I mean, it made my job a lot easier, and I probably didn't make it easier on them doing a lot of the scrambling I did and taking some dumb sacks that I shouldn't have taken. But they were really good.
So Christian, end of the half, Florida tries to make a little bit of run, make it a little closer. Then Mike Harris has the interception. Yeah. You guys go up. You're way up at halftime. Was it 24-7?
24-7, yeah.
At the half, you're going in, and I see when I was looking at, I went back and looked at the replay as you're going into the tunnel. Senior year, of course, you have to do that little gator symbol thing that they like to do.
Chomp.
Yeah. And that reminded me earlier in the year. I remember down in Coral Gables or down in wherever Miami Stadium is now. But you kind of did the same thing there. You were a little fired up down in South Florida too. So you had a little moxie back then, huh? You liked the little smack with the other team.
Yeah, look, I don't think, first of all, it was never planned. It was just kind of those things in the moment that was like, whatever. It was probably stupid to do, but and I still get people tweeting it at me every now and again, especially the UF one. But
did you flash the U? Did you flash the U too?
I did. First of all, I think I flashed it wrong, right? I didn't do this. I did this.
Yeah.
Is this like?
Yeah, we got a picture of it.
Are we playing paper football? Like,
yeah.
Well, at least you Naughty did it, and he did it upside down. So at least you weren't that offensive.
Yeah. So it's I don't know why I did it, but it made it more fun, and I think it was like one poor little UF fan who was sitting in like the Florida State student section. So he was already probably getting heckled. I don't know why I did it.
Also, I think that speaks to how confident those first 30 minutes made you about the rest of that game. Like we're much better than them. We're going to win this game. I don't think you do that necessarily. Or maybe you do.
No.
You're a wild card. You're a wild man. You do what you want.
Right. I was known to be a wild card at Florida State.
But I wonder, like, the fact that it wasn't just that you were up 24-7, you had kind of dominated them. Yeah. And you had a lot of confidence. And I think, Christian, it had been 6 years since Florida State had beaten that team. To see the senior quarterback, go in with that much confidence, like, don't worry, we're going to win this game. I think that gave Florida State fans more reassurance than anything else. Or they might have just thought you were a crazy kid.
Yeah, probably. Like, what is this moron doing? We still got a whole nother half to play. Yeah, I think, look, our defense was playing really well with all the turnovers, and they were stopping them, and we were running the ball really well. And when that happened, when you're running the ball well and your defense is playing well, and obviously, look, it's a tale of two halves. Like, you have to play both halves well, and especially in the rivalry game. But we were feeling good. We were feeling confident in where we were. And yeah, I mean, look, shoot, since I was there, we never had that feeling of being up on Florida. So it was like just something to savor and enjoy going into halftime.
So, Christian, any hope that they could come back? Like you said, the defense is playing well. So you take the opening drive in the third quarter, 10-play methodical drive. You hit Willie Halstead for the touchdown, 31-7. Everyone in that place knows it's done. There's no after that with your defense, the way you guys are playing, it's absolutely done. But talk the importance. I know anybody who does football goes that last, the end of the half and then the first play of that third quarter, first series is so important, and you did both of those. Just talk about that series and then that play to Willie Halstead to kind of ice it.
Yeah, that was and Jimbo preached about situational football all the time, and that if we have the last possession, our last possession and a half, you have to score, and if we get the kickoff going into the second half, you have to score. And unfortunately, we were able to do that. And again, just that play was so well designed, and we got the perfect look. And, I threw a softball right there because there was no one in the middle of the field. Willie had already beaten his guy in a double move. I think he ran a corner post, had the leverage on the guy. So I just laid the ball out there, and made a great catch, and it was like one of those things again, like right after that throw, yeah, it was like, hey, we still got to finish the second half, but man, we're in a really good spot. We're doing everything that we wanted to do. Our game plan is working really well. Again, testament to Jimbo for doing that, and we were supremely confident at that point.
You got hit pretty hard on that throw, or at least you were getting hit as you threw. Number one, how did you get the throw over the kid? Because I think he was coming right at you.
Yeah.
And also, did you see Willie catch it, or did you just hear the crowd?
No, I didn't see him catch it, and I don't know how to. I think it was one of the points you feel the pressure. I didn't know how close I was because I was keeping my eyes downfield, and I knew it was going to be open, so I let it go. And I think he hit. I had that elbow issue, and when I threw it, I hit him, and at that point, my gosh, every game my arm was swelling up. It would be so much pain, and that's what stuck. After that play, my arm swelled up, and I couldn't enjoy the rest of the game. I was in so much pain, and even after the win, I didn't stay on the field to celebrate. I had to go in immediately and get my arm drained because it was in so much pain. It was because I picture myself carrying that gator head all around the field. I was like so mad. I'm like, no, I can't do it. I'm like about to cry because it hurt so bad.
So what was it, a bursa sack thing? What was it?
No, so it wasn't the bursa sack. So what happened was against Miami, the Miami game, I got hit on the sideline and I fell and I slid across one of those tarps that they put on the sideline. And apparently the abrasiveness separated my skin from the fascia over my muscle. And so there was this pocket between my skin and that area. And so just every time I would get hit, it would just fill up with fluid and it would swell. And there was so much pressure that it would it would hurt. So it would swell up so much. And I don't know why, but it did it every time. So I would always, right after every game, it would get drained. And then in the middle of the week, it would have to get drained again. And so it was not fun. It was not fun.
Doesn't sound like it. But on a positive note, you guys would beat Florida, go on to win 31-7. It was the second worst loss an Urban Meyer team ever took. The worst was to Alabama that year, won the national championship. So, was there, again, I don't know if there's players really think as much as fans about coaches. Obviously, there was a lot of acrimony in Florida State Nation towards Urban Meyer. Was it any more satisfying that you guys kind of gave him his fond farewell, that you guys were able to get the last one over on him before he left?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. And look, I have a ton of respect for what Urban Meyer's done. He's the head of a coach everywhere he's gone. He's made it a winning program, and I think that was kind of satisfying that I don't know if we ran him out the door, but it kind of felt
sure you did.
We had this 31-7 victory, and then he was gone. But yeah, that felt good. It felt good to get that monkey off our back and to get that win and an all-important season and my last game. It really was the last game I played because I didn't play in the AC Championship game because of the elbow stuff. And then I get a concussion in the first half of the bowl game. And so that was my last game as a Seminole.
I have to imagine, I know you didn't want to get concussed and you wanted to play in an ACC championship game, but at the same time, that's a really cool memory to have. It's like your last really game as the Florida State quarterback. And on top of that, how much pride did you take in later when you're in the NFL, but this team has become what it became? Because I don't think, Christian, if you don't have that 2010 season, maybe the 2011 recruiting class isn't as good as it ended up being. If those recruits didn't see the proof of what Jimbo was building, if you guys have limped to another 7-6 season, maybe he doesn't get the Timmy Jernigans of the world and people like that. But they saw what he did in that 1 year, that first year as head coach. And then 3 years later, they're playing for a national championship. I assume there's a certain amount of pride that you and Rodney Hudson and people like that take in the program building.
I was just fortunate to be on that team and kind of be in that transitionary period. We had a lot of great older leadership, but we had a lot of great young talent that kind of carried them forward. And look, the team only got better after I left. So there's a story there, but
I think that's a coincidence more than anything else.
Yeah. But no, look, it was a fun team to be a part of, and I was fortunate to play the role that I got to play on that team, and but really without some of those younger guys and older leadership guys that were in key positions like Rodney and Marcus White on defense, and a lot of Chris Thompson, who ended up being a great player in the NFL. We had a ton of talent, and it made my job easy. And look, there was a little jealousy after the fact that, hey, they won a national championship, but they kept getting better and better, but it was fun to watch. You always want to be a part of the team, but it was fun to watch. And I never wanted to be the guy that like took credit for anything. I was never going to take credit for that. Again, I was just fortunate to it was coincidental for me to be on that team that, Jimbo took over, and Jimbo was a great recruiter, and obviously parlayed that into a national championship.
After you've started for him for 3 years, so you've been around him for 1,000 days. And I know it's not always easy with Jimbo. We get it. We understand the relationship with him and his players, especially his quarterbacks. Yeah. But are you his student the entire time? Are you the player the entire time? Or by the time you're a senior playing Florida, is it more like, I don't know, not friend, but like colleagues almost? And he shares it. He can even share with you like, hey, man, I know you're leaving, but we've got you've set up this program. You and your guys have set up this program where we're going to be really good for a long time. Did he share that kind of stuff with you, or was it all strictly coach-student?
Yeah, no, he did. I think especially his role with me, he wanted to build confidence. I think people see Jimbo as the yeller and screamer, and he is hard on quarterbacks, but his philosophy is, I'm going to be hard on you, especially in practice, because it's going to make the game easier. But behind closed doors, he was always just trying to build confidence in you. And that's why I appreciate him so much. Like, he had really high expectations, and when you didn't reach those expectations, he told you. And he told you in not so gentle way, so you heard him. But behind closed doors, he was just nothing but positive and always building guys up. Or at least that was my experience. And yeah, I mean, he had this conversation, hey, like, look what you've done. And look, again, I'm not going to take credit for that. There's a lot of pieces that went on in that program outside of me, and I was just, fortunate, and it was a coincidence to be a part of. But look, he's a great coach, and I don't think I never would have became the player I was without him. And I even, when I came in, I graduated high school in December, enrolled in January, and just came in, and wow, like, just feeling way over my head. And was this the right thing to do? Was this the right place to come to? Just completely lacking confidence. And then Jimbo coming in, that spring of after my redshirt year. And from that first spring practice, I remember him just talking to me one-on-one and just giving me this confidence that I hadn't had before. And it really just took off from there.
Christian, last thing for me, and I don't know if you've had a chance to interact with Florida State's new head coach, Mike Norvell, yet. You guys are different parts of the country and everything. But just, I don't know if you saw Memphis, so you have any kind of take on what kind of coach he is. Obviously, another offensive guy that's come together. What are your thoughts about how he's going to be successful at Florida State?
Yeah, so there was a call a couple weeks ago. He did a Zoom call with whatever former players want to get on and hear him talk, and just really walked away feeling really confident in who he is as a coach and who he is as a person. I think he's kind of the perfect role right now in terms of he seems like a really high character guy, and also seems like he's got that, hey, I'm going to be hard on you because I have high expectations for you, but I'm also going to build you up quietly and make sure that you're a confident player. And offensively, I haven't watched enough to know schematically what they're going to do. But look, it's Florida State. He's going to have the talent to make a good team, and he seems like he's the right guy in place to get all those working parts together, moving in one motion towards one goal, and get everyone on the same page. So I'm excited for what this year is going to be and what it's going to look like, and then obviously that's just step one, and hopefully a bunch of years after that. But he seems like he's the right guy for this job.
So you never got to hoist the Gator head?
I never did, man. I never did.
Ridiculous.
I know.
Come back one time, and if they can beat Florida again, they'll let you be an honorary.
yeah. That's mine. I never got to do that. Yeah.
Give me my chance.
That's horrible. I never realized that. I remember out there. That's right. I remember that night. Every player hand it, and everybody run around the side, high-fiving the players going in the stands. And you're right. I never thought about that. Where's Christian? I didn't realize.
I had to go inside. I wasn't so much. I was hurting. So yeah. But the combination of beating the Gators and then finding out that we were going to the ACC championship game. I remember the fireworks going on. It was a great night.
Yeah, that was a cool night, man. That really was. That was a really fun night to be there and watch you watch that team kind of get its due. And, you know, I'm telling you, I know you don't want to take credit for it, but I don't think 2012 and 2013 happened without 2010. I just think that's what started it all off. A 10-win season right out of the gate, even with a kid with an elbow that he couldn't even hardly throw the ball sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I'll always be grateful for my experience at Florida State. And it's just funny, like, you know, reliving some of this stuff, because a lot of stuff I haven't thought about, or names I haven't even thought about or saw, and like participating in that Zoom call with Coach Norvell the other day and seeing some old faces, just unbelievable memories, and such an amazing program, and always will be grateful for that experience.
Well, Christian, you've been unbelievably generous with your time. We appreciate it. And
sorry, man. Sorry about my power, buddy.
Yeah. And sorry for
no
Corey.
worries.
And so glad to hear that you and your family are doing well.
I appreciate
it. It's very, this time of year, man, that's great that everybody's happy and healthy right now. So we hope you continued luck and success with the ventures you were telling us about, man.
Yeah.
Hope to see you soon. Hope you can get to Tallahassee some point this year.
Yeah, I hope so. My dad's in the varsity club. They have season tickets, so he's there every weekend. It's hard with 3 kids, especially when my wife works on the weekend, to get away. But at some point, we'll get down there. And I want to say to you, Gene and Corey, you know, I spending time in the league and experiencing some journalists and writers from all different areas. There's some people that aren't necessarily looking out for anyone's best interest, and I always felt like you guys looked out for our best interests, and we're always great to deal with. So very appreciative of that, and glad you guys are still going strong.
Well, that means
Thanks,
a lot,
buddy. We appreciate that, man. I don't look any older, do I?
You look great.
I think you got a little more hair back then, maybe.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Whatever.
Hey,
time to end the call, Gene. Time to end the call.
Thanks a lot, Christian. Take care.
Thanks, Christian. Appreciate it, man.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.